This is the Lutheran Education Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we explore issues, trends, and events surrounding Christian education with your hosts, Richard Schumacher, Senior Director of Operations at LSEM, and Dr. Tracy Salgado, Director of Special Education at LSEM.
And welcome to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries, Season 9 of the podcast. It is crazy to think this is the 9th year that we've been doing podcasts. Some years we had a lot, some years not so many, but it's been a lot of fun over the last almost decade of talking about all things in Lutheran education. And to start off the season this year, we've got a really great guest with us today. This person is the winner of the inaugural the 2026 Kathy A. Krause Resource Room Teacher of the Year, new award that LSM is giving out to resource room teachers who go above and beyond. Her name is Kasey Mathews. She is the resource room teacher at Emmanuel Lutheran School in East Dundee, Illinois. Kasey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. And again, congratulations on the win. So what does it feel like to be an award-winning resource room teacher?
Well, it's a once in a lifetime thing, so I'm pretty happy about it. It's kind of weird to know that I am the winner because there's so many teachers in LSEM. And I really appreciate the parents and the relationships that I've built to win this award.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is worth noting is that the nominations for our resource room teacher can come from really anybody, but in this particular case, it was teachers at the school who, when they heard about this award, wrote in and then said that they really felt that Kasey was deserving of this award in so many different ways. So, I mean, it's nice to get that recognition in any sense. But I imagine knowing that it's coming from the parents of the kids that you are working so hard to help, that had to make it feel even a little better.
Yeah, and some of these kids, I've worked for LSEM for 8 years now. So I've had these kids from, first grade, kindergarten, all the way. Now they're going to be in eighth grade. So they're leaving. So that's kind of sad because you build these relationships. You don't just, you're not a gen ed teacher who has this kid for 1 year and moves up. So it's kind of sad to watch these kids go, but it's also rewarding because you see them grow so much.
Yeah, that's a great point because so many teachers do. They've got they'll look at a group of kids or a student, but they have them for a year, maybe two at the most, and then they're off to other grade levels, etc. But to be able to watch students grow, and because you're working with them so directly, so specifically on things, you're charting their growth and their achievement from a very early age, and to have had now 8 years of watching that and helping to shape that again, a very rewarding feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you get personal relationships with the parents too, because if special needs parents, they do a lot for their kids and they're very protective, and you're their protective quote unquote parent at the school. So they rely on you to advocate for their kid. So I've become close even outside of the school with some of the parents, which is, in the public school, that's a no-no.
Sure.
But here in the Lutheran realm, you can become friends with them, So I will keep in touch with some of the kids. They think that I'm going to high school with them. So they're not worried, but I had to let them down and say, no, I'm staying where I'm staying. So it's kind of bittersweet.
If that's some way of like leveraging a contract negotiation, we'll have to talk about this off the podcast if that's all right. But no, that kind of brings up an interesting thought to me, Kasey, because again, you are building relationships with those parents as well. So how about this? I mean, you had parents who nominated you for this award and said lots of nice things about you. Not to be specific or single out any one or a couple of parents, but let me ask you this question. Working with students the way you do in the setting that you are, parents make a huge difference in the success of the student, how far they're really going to be able to go. From your perspective, what makes a good parent when it comes to helping support a student with these learning struggles that yet you're working with? What should parents be trying to do? What is successful when parents are doing those things?
Well, I think the parent should be real about the abilities of the student.
Yeah.
That's meet them where they're at and then grow through there. You can sit there and read with your kid, but if they have a learning disability, they're not going to want to read. So work on their listening comprehension, find something that interests them. Take time out of your day just to talk to your kid about school. All those things help the kid grow.
Mhm.
So I've had parents actually adapt for their student, and then the student comes back. Like in the Lutheran school, they do memory.
Right.
So a kid came back and was like, my mom highlights the first two lines in this color, and then I memorize it. And then this color for the next two lines, and then I memorize it. So um, when he showed me that, I used it for other students. Like even these parents have different strategies that they use that they can collaborate with me on. Like they can email me and say, hey, this is too much for my student. How do I do this? Or then I'll talk to the teacher, I'll talk to the parent, and we will cut down the workload, or like I said, highlight or make a word bank. So in the collaboration, I feel like the kid feels more comfortable to come to you when they're struggling because they know like you talk to their parent, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I it took me as an educator myself, it took me a while to realize that actually I really got good at it when I became an administrator and for a few years was a principal and a teacher at the same time because I recognized I can't just rely upon having relationships within the four walls of my classroom or even trying to start relationships with the parents of the classroom. As a principal, I had relationships with every parent because my role was different.
Yeah.
And had I just thought of that more earlier in my career, had I given that more thought, I think I could have been better sooner because once I had that level of comfort when it came to communicating with parents and not being worried about, well, how might they react and all those other fears that you kind of have when you start out as a teacher, had I been there sooner, I could have done so much more. And I kind of kicked myself for not learning that lesson sooner
Yeah.
in life, but at least I did learn it. And I can see where in a resource room setting, that's even more critical.
Yeah. The other thing is when I get a new student, I'm not sure about the parents yet, you know.
Hmm.
So I start working with them and then I'll send like a little email saying your kid did great today and give them a specific thing. Or then they'll come back and be like, hey, thanks. What can we work on at home? Or I had a parent say, oh, wow, I never get good emails. So thank you so much. So I tried to do that more with this one kid who keeps getting in trouble. So yeah, it really, and you can see it boosts the kid's confidence too,
Sure, I
because they'll get
imagine.
home and get praised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if the student's getting nothing but kind of, I don't want to use, a really negative term, but if they're just getting a lot of negative feedback throughout the course of the school day, maybe even some when they get home, those positive statements really do sink in deeper because if they're used to one positive thing out of 10 things that are being said to them, they're more than likely going to really appreciate that positive, and then that can be kind of a connector to help build a relationship and to start building confidence again. So then one out of 10 becomes 1 out of 5, becomes one
Right.
to one, becomes 5 to 1, where they're starting to see and feel that growth and that reassurance in their own abilities.
Yeah. The other thing that I've seen is I've grown close with these kids. So they go to the gen ed class and the gen ed teacher's like, they can't read that. I'm like, yes, they can. They're playing you. So then I'll have the kid come down and I'll be like, why did you do that? Oh, because I didn't want to read that day. No, your need is not an excuse. I do not use mine as an excuse. You're not using yours as an excuse. One of the kids is like, I have dyslexia, I can't read. Yeah, you can. Are you gonna say that in the future when you go into the trades or wherever you're going? Oh, I can't do my job because I can't read. No, you're not. You find different ways. You've been taught different ways, and you can use those out in the real world.
Yeah,
So knock it off.
but isn't that human nature to try and find whatever way we can to, I don't feel like adulting today, so
Yeah,
I'll do this, or I don't feel like doing this job today, so I'll do that. But
yeah, yeah,
so some of those things are definitely universal.
yeah.
We're talking with Kasey Mathews, resource room teacher at Emmanuel Lutheran School in East Dundee, Illinois, on the podcast today. So from what you're saying, I keep seeing this common thread of communication being really at the center of the success that you're having. What what intentional things do you do when it comes to communicating with all these various groups, your classroom teachers, your school administrators, parents, kids? What are the things that you do to set yourself up for success in that?
Well, at the beginning of the year, I do a like ISP snapshot or an
Okay.
education plan snapshot, and then well, now I do it on the computer. Back in the day when I first started, I would pencil and paper it, but you know, um, so I do that, and then I say if you have any questions, and some people will come down straight to my office and be like, "What does this mean?" or "How do I do this?" or "Thank you so much." Even not even the gen ed teachers, the music teacher, the computer teacher, you have to communicate with all of those people. And then if I have a question about something, I either text my principal or email him because I never know like if he's in his office, is he in a classroom, is he in a meeting? So I will text or email him my questions right away because or else I'll forget them. But yeah, I have a good relationship with the principal too. So that's also a good thing because my principal isn't versed in special education.
Right.
So if he comes to me and asks me a question, I can help him navigate through that. And um, I can show him different research and things like that to help him learn a little more.
And that's a great point you make. And again, this is no knock on your building principal. He's fantastic. Um, but not every administrator has the same experiences and background as the teachers that they're teaching. In your situation, it's in a resource room setting, but um, if the principal is a former middle school teacher, then he probably hasn't done a whole lot, or she hasn't probably done a whole lot of time studying about how kids learn how to read because that's early childhood, that's not middle school, and vice versa. You know,
Yeah.
so being in the role that you're in, how do you then help fill in that gap to help him know what he needs to know so he can be as effective as he needs to be, but also as supportive as you as he needs to be?
Right. Again, I just show him by knowledge, basically. I've done because when I first worked there, the teachers were like, "What is your role?" And I would tell them and they wouldn't know. So in the beginning of the year, a couple of years ago, I did a professional development. Like this is how special ed works. You go here and then you go here, and it is like a circle.
Mhm.
So, and I had handouts and everything. And they said that was very helpful. Um, Even with my principal, sometimes I'll have him sit in on certain meetings because I get nervous sometimes. You
Mhm.
never know what a parent's going to say or do in some meetings. So sometimes I'm like, hey, can you sit in on this one? I'll say, sure. or if he can't, he can't. But and then I talked to the gen ed teacher before we have our meetings with the public school, and we talk about what they're doing in the classroom and how we can help and what happens if they're found eligible for an education plan. What
Okay.
happens if they're not eligible? We talk about all those things. And then I have to be versed in the public school because I have to know what's going on at the public school so that I can translate that over to the private school. So I have to communicate there too.
Yeah, and so much of that information is very specific, and the legalities of special education differ in many ways from regular education, that it's hard for anybody in education to keep those things straight. Having a special education teacher like yourself in the building who knows the laws and knows the responsibilities, requirements of parents, of the school district, of all those different entities is really valuable. I know when I first became principal, I was one of those guys who was elevated into the role kind of quickly.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't like my lifelong educational dream to be a principal. It just sort of happened. And so I knew going into that first year, I didn't know anywhere close to what I needed to know. But I had an LSEM teacher at my school, and she was fantastic in terms of being able to, again, Rich, let me teach you what you need to learn here. And she was willing to be that point person with the public school district to make sure that meetings that needed to be scheduled got scheduled and things didn't fall through the cracks. Having that knowledge and expertise really makes a big difference because I'll put myself in this position and not your principal because again I can't speak to his knowledge, but if I call the public school district and say, hey, where are we at with this student? As soon as they figure out my limitations of knowledge, then they could tell me this, that, or the other, and I wouldn't know any different.
Right.
When you call because of your experience, background, and knowledge, they get the sense that this lady knows what she's doing. So any idea, and this sounds very, very negative, but the reality is the reality. Any idea of cutting a corner or trying to push some things off within your school are dropped because they know that you're going to hold them accountable to do what they need to do in a kind way, but in a firm way.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had that happen. And I've just had to say, listen, this is how my program works. I can do A, B, and C, and you guys need to have offer this many sessions to the kid because in an ISP, it's very different than, public school. I taught
Mhm.
in public school for maybe 9 years.
Okay.
So it's very different going from public school to private school, where public school they go by minutes, like you get 450 minutes of language support in the resource room. Here, for public school, you get so many sessions, like 30-minute sessions 11 times a year.
Right.
So you have to know that too in order to help the student. And some of the teachers don't understand that, which you have to teach them that. And then you have to make sure those sessions are provided. Like they can't cut that off.
Mhm.
Like just because you think this student is doing fine because you see them 30 minutes over Zoom, because we have Zoom speech from the
Oy,
public
Zoom
school.
speech.
Mhm. Just because you think this student is doing fine in your Zoom speech for 30 minutes, they're not fine in the classroom. They're not fine in the resource room where I can physically see them
Mhm.
and listen to them 30 minutes for 3 times a week as opposed to here. So I've had to fight for that before. Like, you can't dismiss this child.
Mhm. And so
So,
many of those decisions, you just wonder, they don't seem to be based on the need of the student. They don't seem to be based on the best interest of the student. They seem to be based on budgetary concerns by other entities. And again, not to be negative, I don't want to disparage public school teachers who do fantastic work each and every day. But yeah, the Zoom speech curriculum, and yours isn't the only district that I know of in LSEM world that that has that practice going on. That's really been one of they talk about silver linings to the cloud, but this is one of the definite dark clouds
Yeah.
that COVID has continued to keep in our education system.
And I don't like to talk negative about it. The teachers don't like it. But what am I going to do? I can't control that. Like, I can say my piece like I did in one of the meetings, but they're like, well, it's going to stay that way because that's
So
within our realm.
So how do you then, in a situation like that, try to turn that negative into a little bit more of a positive, if at all possible? I mean, because again, the services given over Zoom, they're just not as effective. So if you
Right.
see something that's less effective than it needs to be, how do you find those ways to fill in those gaps and to try and make it better?
Well, lucky for me, they do a Zoom speech right outside my office. So
Okay.
I can hear them if I have like a planning time or like a 5 minute interval, I can hear them. So I can still work on that stuff in my office. And the speech teacher does talk to the gen ed teachers about what they're working on. So that is a positive right there that they can communicate where you can work on it with the student with the speech therapist not there. I just say, you know what? They're getting speech. That's what they need. At least they're getting something and it's not anything. So,
All right, well, now looks like a good time for us to stop, take a break. When we get back, we'll continue the conversation with Kasey Mathews, teacher at Emmanuel Lutheran School in East Dundee, Illinois, and award-winning resource room teacher from LSEM. We'll continue the conversation with her in just a few moments. You're listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Lutheran Special Education Ministries, a recognized service organization of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, equips Christian churches and schools to better serve children with learning needs. LSEM works with congregations to train and equip staff and volunteers with practical, proven strategies for supporting children in church, Sunday school, and vacation Bible school. LSEM also partners with Christian schools across the country and around the world, providing and equipping resource room teachers to serve students from pre-K through 12th grade. And through both virtual and in-person professional development, LSEM provides teachers and school leaders with the training and resources they need to meet the diverse learning needs of their students, regardless of the size or location of their school. To learn more about LSEM's programs or to discover how your church or school can support this important ministry, visit luthsped.org or email lsem@luthsped.org. LSEM, equipping the LCMS to help children learn, grow, and thrive.
And welcome back to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. We're continuing our conversation with Kasey Mathews, the resource room teacher for LSEM, working at Emmanuel Lutheran School in East Dundee, Illinois. Kasey, when we started off the conversation here, we normally will go into tell us about yourself, but we just jumped right in to content, which is great. But in all fairness, we should probably say, hey, Kasey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you hail, your experiences, and so on.
all right. I am from Illinois. I live about 30 minutes to the Wisconsin border.
Okay.
I got into special education because I felt like um, there needed to be a positive role model in kids who are struggling. I struggled myself. And the special ed teachers were always really kind and accommodating. So that's how I got into that. I've been doing it now 16 years. I started in public school. Um, I did subbing for a little bit. When I first got out of school, I went to Carthage, which is in Wisconsin, and I only had a Wisconsin license.
Okay.
So I had to take the same exact tests in Illinois. Um, so I couldn't get a job first off. So I was an aide for some little boy who had severe dyslexia, and it just grew my love for the profession even more. Um, my first job was at like a special recreation department at summer camps. So
Mhm.
that was kind of cool. I live here with my husband and my one dog now,
Mm.
who's
Sorry.
7.
I'm sorry
Yeah,
to hear that because you had two dogs.
I did. That happened like 6 weeks ago. So
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear
yeah,
that.
me too. He lived a good life. He was 14. So I'm an avid Cubs fan, Bears fan. I like to read and play board games, card games. So
Well, by the time this airs in late August, hopefully your Cubs are still very much in the running. Um,
hopefully.
my Tigers, who knows? Maybe your Cubs have Tarek Skubal pitching for them by then. Again, who
Maybe.
knows? So, so we shall see. But
Yeah.
you had mentioned in there how accommodating the teachers that you got to work with as a student were and how you appreciated that work. How do you see yourself kind of modeling that or being an extension of that? I mean, do you ever think back to those teachers that you had who really set a tone for you and think, I want to do that same sort of thing when it comes to making an impact in the lives of my own students?
Yeah. Some of them went the extra mile. Just, hey, come in and um, I'll help you in the morning. Or, hey, I know this is hard. Let me help you do this. I didn't necessarily have like the special ed classes. I I myself have cerebral palsy. So um, I went to school with 4 flights of stairs. Every school I had 4 flights of stairs and no elevator. So I would be taken out of class with like an itinerant or a physical therapist to help with the stairs to see like how we could make it easier for me. Um, but just going the extra mile, you could that's all it took. So I try to do that for my kids too. Like um because I work at a manual, they have a auction every other year. So the teachers have to like come up with something.
Right.
So I'm always at Dunkin' Donuts, getting my coffee before school. So my service was Dunkin' with Mrs. Mathews. Someone paid a really good amount for their kid to get taken out of school and go to Dunkin' Donuts with Mrs. Mathews. Like,
Nice.
some of these kids, um, they blow off like the standardized testing, like map testing.
Mhm.
And so I'll say, hey, if you if you get a higher score on your next one, I'll get you a candy bar because I know they're blowing it off. It's not that um their disability is impeding. I know that they're blowing it off. So there's a difference between um one and the other. So I know what's hard for you. I can see it, like, even if you don't say it, I can see it in your face. I can see it in your work. But I also know when you're blowing something off, especially in the middle school grades.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So there's that fine line too. So, or I might have to call a parent because this one doesn't feel good and the teacher didn't realize there was a rash all over, and he'll be like, can you just call my parent? Yeah, I'll call and see what I can do. I have to call the office first. But yeah, it's stuff like that they come down, they feel comfortable because you do extra things for them. Hey, can I sit with you at an assembly? Because I know that I can't sit still and my teacher won't understand. Yeah. So those are all things. I did have a student who had a new diagnosis one year,
Okay.
and I asked him, like, he was nervous about the assembly. So I said, did noises make you, like, hurt you, or do they make you nervous? Well, they make me nervous. So I called the principal down again with teamwork, and we said, just sit on the end, and if it's bothering you really bad, just go out those doors and go get a drink or something. So it's just something that when you see it, you have to address it, and then you can go that extra mile.
And it's again to your credit that you take that extra time to ask those questions, to observe those behaviors, and then have that knowledge of, again, when the student is legitimately struggling in that particular case, or if the student's just trying to see
What
what
they
they can
can get
stretch
away
and
with.
get away with.
Yeah,
So again, and again, a lot of the teachers in the gen ed classrooms, because they're dealing with 15, 20, 25 kids, it's harder for them to be able to notice that. Their focus is on other things. So to
right.
kind of tie that into my next question, um, accommodations are such a huge important part of special education, and really for that you don't even have to have a diagnosis to sometimes just need an accommodation. I mean,
Yeah,
some days just life kind of creates a scenario where, hey, we're gonna flex into something different because it's just not happening. If there was one accommodation or one approach to accommodations that you would recommend for any and every gen ed teacher out there, what's that go-to first accommodation that they should be willing to use as liberally as they need to? What might that be?
I would say looking at seating choice, because there's kids who need to move around, like I said. There's kids who can't focus when they're by a certain student, or they can't pay attention when they're in the back with their buddy.
Hmm.
You know, you have to look at, um, the economic status. Some of these kids come from homes that are not very stable. So if this kid's going to sleep next to me and snore, I'm going to need to concentrate up front. So put that kid somewhere, put another kid somewhere. It's just, that's an accommodation you can easily use.
I have to tell this story if you don't mind. When I was teaching, the way again, I was a middle school teacher, I was always doing a chart where I would write up my seating chart on a piece of paper I kept in front of me, and it was on my desk. And then, so just imagine a bunch of lines that represent each desk, and I just put a random number in pencil. I'll come back to that in a minute.
Mhm.
Next to each line, I'd have a student up on the chalkboard, write up all the numbers. Whoever didn't get to pick last time started. They would pick any number, and wherever number they picked, that's where they would land. And then whoever was at that spot would then get the next pick. And so they would just pick a number, and I would write their name on the chart wherever they were at. If a student landed someplace on my chart where they really probably shouldn't be, it was the easiest thing in the world for me on my chart in pencil to change that 8 to an 18 and then change the 18 to an 8.
Right.
There were some days where the class itself was just really overly antsy, or just I needed to kind of help them. And so instead of writing the numbers on my chart, I wrote the names on my chart and then just wrote in the number as we went through the same process. But the process was always the same. The students knew that they were randomly, and that's in air quotes,
Yeah.
selecting their seats, but it worked out to where I was able to, for the most part, let it work randomly. But in those places where a little attention needed to happen, I was able to offer that. And it made the whole changing of the seats a little more fun. It took 5 minutes, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
a huge time suck by any stretch, but I would do that, but I did that with what you're saying definitely in mind, that sometimes, this student is a little bit more antsy, needs to get up and move around, so let me put him where he's not in the center of the room in the view of a bunch of others distracting other kids who might need to have that more peaceful sort of environment, or definitely not putting Fred and Sam next to each other. But I also wouldn't put Fred in this corner and Sam in that corner because they would just talk across the entire room.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
learn those pieces, but I just always thought that was a fun way of disguising what I was doing while at the same time letting the kids have some say into to where the seating chart was going to go.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
So we're talking again with Kasey Mathews, Resource Room Teacher of the Year, the Kathy Krause Award. Now, you know Kathy, you worked with Kathy for a number of years. If I remember correctly, because it's been a minute, I don't think I was on the interview team for you when you first interviewed for the position. It was Kara Bratton and
Yeah,
Kathy Krause who had interviewed you guys.
yeah.
And I remember that because I remember after that interview, Kathy reached out to me and said, "What a tremendous teacher you were going to be." We would talk about how the interviews would go. And right from the very beginning, she was very, very much a fan of you and what you were going to bring, and knew that you would just be the right fit for that building. Talk a little bit, if you would, about Kathy. I know a lot of our listeners know Kathy from over the years working with LSEM, but tell us a little bit about her and perhaps some of the influence that she may have had over you in this relationship you've had with her for the last 7, 8 years.
Kathy brings the humor, is what I can say.
Yep.
So if I was having a stressful moment or something, I would text her, I need to talk, and she would call and we would figure it out. She would tell me how to like problem solve, and then she would always make me laugh at the end. Like I'd be so frustrated, but Kathy would always put something in there or something very sweet that warmed your heart. I liked to bounce things off of her because she knew a lot
Mhm.
too. So her advice was awesome every time too, right on the money. Um, and then I would talk to her about things that I would want to change or do. And she supported me wholeheartedly. So that's what I loved about Kathy. I kind of miss that. Every once in a while I'll still text her and be like, how's it going over there? Like, but yeah, so, and she has a connection with Emmanuel.
Yep.
So that was good to talk about too.
Yep. Many moons ago, her son-in-law and daughter, her son-in-law was the pastor at Emmanuel in East Dundee. And did Shane teach at the school, or was she just a member there with her husband?
I think she was just a member. I'm
Yeah.
not sure though.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I know Shane used to work, I don't know if he was, but Shane used to work for LSEM for many years as well when she was here in Michigan up in that St. John Rochester. So
Yeah. So she just had really good advice and with all her experience. And sometimes you feel a little lonely, like
oh yeah.
being a special ed teacher, and especially like the one in Tinley Park retired, that
Yep,
teacher
Arlene.
retired.
Mhm.
So then I was the only one in Illinois for a little bit. So I'm like, wait, what am I doing? So I would call her and I wouldn't feel as lonely. So yeah, that's what I like about LSEM with the meetings and everything we have. We are on Zoom. Um, and you get to know these teachers and you get to see they're going through the same stuff you are.
Yep, and
So
it's nice to be able to have that. I always think for teachers, it's nice to have several different circles of friends or confidants, whatever you can go to. Um, the one circle being folks who know exactly what you are doing because they're right there alongside dealing with it with you. So colleagues in the building, that kind of thing, folks who are at the school who
yeah,
are, you know, fighting the same battles and winning the same victories. Then having that group of people who do something similar to what you do, but not having knowledge of all of the players and the people and whatnot
Right.
within your
Yeah.
building. And then that third circle is people who I don't care what you do for a living. I don't,
Right.
I'd rather not talk about school and take you out of that circle because as educators, I think we as much as any other entity, and I'm sure every profession does this, but when we get together with other educators, we talk education, and it's just a constant. And heaven forbid you go out with a teacher friend and your husband and her husband have, okay, what are we going to talk about? Because
Yeah,
how
I've
many
been
how
there
many
too.
school conversations has he had to endure over the years? But anyway, it's
Poor guy.
nice to have those three layers. And
Yeah.
Kathy, to bring it back to her, was just such a phenomenal person in all of those areas because she's knowledgeable, she understands, has had a personal connection, but also is not trying to commandeer you from her position to say, well, you have to do ABC,
Right.
definitely offering ideas and thoughts, but listening and supporting in that sort of a sense too.
Yes. And at one point, I lost my voice for a month, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on over there?" I don't know, Kathy. I don't know. She's like, "You need to go get some medicine, and you need to do it now." And I was like, I've already tried that, but thank you. You know, she's got that mothering instinct in her too,
She
which is,
does.
yeah, comforting it as well at times. So she's just a jack of all trades, you know.
So that had to be an interesting month without a voice trying to teach students.
Um, yeah, it was. I used Google Classroom a lot, and then some of the kids were like, "Mrs. Mathews, let me just talk for you." And I'm like, "No, just let me give the direction once and then you can do it." And they're like, "Okay." It didn't help, but you know, I worked through it. So,
Oh, that's what teachers do. That's what good
yeah,
teachers do is they figure out how to work around because
yeah,
there's always something. Nothing ever really goes perfectly in anything, but
yeah,
you have to be quick on your feet and be able to make that workaround happen as quickly as you can.
right. Yeah, that was
So
great.
so as we sit here, and again, we're this podcast is dropping end of August, but we're sitting here at the end of July. So a few more weeks of summer yet. What does Kasey Mathews do in the summer to relax and to refresh yourself to get ready for the upcoming school year? And what's the one thing you're most looking forward to about getting back in the fall?
Okay. So I this year I went to Montana. My brother
Nice.
lives in Montana, and my nephew graduated high school. And then his sister just had a baby like 3 days ago. So yeah, I went
Congratulations.
to Montana. I hang out with friends a lot. Um, I do tutor a little bit in the summer, but I can make my own schedule. So it can be like in the morning and then in the afternoon, I can go do whatever.
Mhm.
Um, road trips are fun. I'm going on one this weekend to see my sister-in-laws in Champaign-Urbana. Um, I read a lot. Thrillers are my friend. And just hang out with my dog in general, my husband, him too. I guess
Him too.
him too. Yeah. So
I,
yeah,
I have a wife and two dogs. I understand the him too.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, and so
So oh,
school is
what's
coming. So what you looking forward to?
hanging out with the kids. That's my one thing is the kids, seeing their faces and having conversations about what they did over the summer, seeing how much they've grown height wise
Hmm.
and you know, academic wise. They might not have, but they might have. We don't know. So,
Well,
yeah.
whether they did or whether they didn't, I'm sure you're going to be ready for them and
Oh, yeah.
prepared to move them along into the next phase of whatever learning that they've got in front of them.
Yeah. I already did 2 unit plans. So,
That's the
teachers have the
joy.
summer off, though, you know?
That's that's the joy of being a teacher. Off has a different definition, I think, than many other professions out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Kasey, I can't thank you enough for your willingness to do this. Again, I know uh, whenever we have the principals who won the award, or now the teacher who's won the award, there's always well, why would anybody want to talk to me? What's so special about what I'm doing? I'm just doing what God called me to do.
yeah,
And so there's always that kind of hesitation at first, and then the conversation takes place and it just goes tremendously. And I would say this one did as well. Thank you so much for what you do each and every day. Again, I was honored to be down at Emmanuel with Mindy English from our group, who was supposed to be on this podcast today, but
yeah,
she
Mindy.
blew us off.
Yeah,
And just was just overwhelmed by the amount of love and support that the entire school community gave you
yeah.
as you received that award. I mean, it was just a remarkable setting, and if you ever had any doubts at all about how
I,
the Emmanuel community feels about you and the work you're doing there, I think they answered it in spades that day.
yeah, I wasn't ready for the standing ovation, especially some of those teachers. So yeah, and the parents in the back, and actually one of my old students came back from high school just to watch it.
Yeah.
So I still have goosebumps now just talking about it.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
incredibly humbled.
And by standing ovation for the listeners, I just want to mention, not only did everybody in the room stand, they stood immediately and they clapped and clapped and clapped. It felt like 10 minutes. It
Uh-huh.
was it was legitimate 60 seconds of just
Yeah,
clapping and cheering and celebrating the award that you had received. So again,
yeah,
really truly was a very touching moment, and
yeah.
a got to be just a personally satisfying moment, again, to know
Right.
all the things that you have done, overcome, the extra work you put in to be the teacher that you are, to have that community be able to stand up and recognize it and say thank you the way they did, was tremendous. And again, on behalf of
Yeah.
all the rest of us at LSEM, we also, I'm not going to give you a standing ovation here on the
Oh, thank you.
podcast,
Thank you.
but thank you for everything that you do. I can't think of a more deserving and a more wonderful inaugural winner of the award.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed today as well. So,
Uh, Blessings on the rest of your summer and on the rest of
you
your
too.
start of your school year. Look forward to working with you this year.
All right, me too. Let's
And
get it
for all the
started.
teachers listening in on this first episode, again, welcome back to season 9. Look forward to continuing to provide you with more interesting content. If there's ideas you've got to share, please send them to us. Otherwise, keep listening, share the links, comment wherever, subscribe wherever, and we'll look forward to talking to you again here in a couple weeks on the next episode of the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Thank you for listening. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. For more information about LSEM, go to our website at luthsped.org. You can follow us on X by going to www.x.com/LSEM1873 or on Facebook at facebook.com/LSEM1873. If you're on Instagram, you can find us by going to @LSEM1873. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. Did you enjoy today's podcast? Want to help get the word out? Please leave us a review on the app you're using to listen today.